What's up, duelists? I'm back. This last weekend, I played in a $1,000 tournament hosted by Feel Good Gaming. Shout out to them. Honestly, I'm going to get into it a little bit more later in the video, but those guys are awesome. Check them out on YouTube. Check out their Discord. They host tournaments in their Discord with pretty sick prizes. And they also host tournaments at Xanadu and in the East Coast area for a lot of people. They've also covered the top 8 decks from this event and some of the games from the top 8 of this event on their YouTube. So definitely go check them out, subscribe. I'll leave a link to them in the description or in the comments below. But yeah, this video is more about me. Honestly, enough about the amazing people at Feel Good Gaming and the great scene that they are building there. And more about me. How can I make this about me? My tournament experience. One second, I got a cough. Hold up. I'm back. So I decided to play Fairies, okay? I decided to play Fairies. Why? Why? Because, you know what? I like this deck. Is it my favorite deck? Maybe. This deck is really, really strong. My tournament went a little something like this. Round 1, I played against Norlaris. Game 1, I'm sitting down. I'm like, damn, I have to play against Norlaris round 1. I knew what the guy was playing because we had tested previously before the tournament started. So I was like, damn, I really don't want to play against this. But I opened up with Dimensional Alchemist going first, and I set Mirror Force and Return, and I flipped over a Shining Angel with my Dimensional Alchemist. The next turn, I flipped over another monster. I summoned a DD Warrior Lady. I attacked, I banished his set monster, I flipped that return, and I OTK'd him. So, the tournament started off pretty good for me. I started off 1-0 against Norlaris. I had a really sweet Dimensional Alchemist OTK, and then the next game, I had a really nice game where I bluffed Herald, and he card destruction me, and I did not have Herald. So, it actually ended up working out really well. So, that was great. That was great. Round 2, I get paired against Hero Stun, and let me tell you, the build I decided to bring, well, hold up, I got a cough one more time. God damn, bro. God damn, the climate change is fucking with my brains. It's fucking with my brains. Okay, but yeah, the build I decided to bring, if you took a second to look at it, it is not, it does not deal well with skill drain. Like, look at this. Look at this. These 4 monsters down here do nothing under skill drain. These 3 monsters right here, nothing under skill drain. This guy, nothing under skill drain. This guy, he's got 1900 defense, and that saved me a lot of time against the stun deck, but yeah, it did not work out super well for me. Game 2, I destroyed him with Christia because this card is broken, and then Game 3, he had Light Mirror, Skill Drain, doubled Fossil Dyna off the top when we were in a top decking war, and it was just a little bit too much for me to deal with as I proceeded to top deck Dust Tornado as I got beat down by a Dyna with Trag in my hand. So I was like, well, you know what? Maybe my deck wasn't cut out to beat main deck Skill Drain, but let's see if I can bounce back. Round 3, I played against Vayu Turbo. Game 1, he had the absolute nuts. He Heavy Stormed me for 2. He Dust Shooted me, and then he Solemned my normal summon, and I was left with nothing but Honest and Christia. On my turn, I top decked Legacy of Yatagarasu. I set it. I passed the turn back. I bluffed Mirror Force. He didn't go for lethal. I Legacied into Gorse, and I was able to come back with Gorse plus Honest for game. So yeah, it was impressive. Because he paid that 4,000 off the Solemn, he did drop down to my Gorse and Honest on the Gorse token to 0, which worked out really, really well for me. Luckily, I ripped Gorse off Legacy of Yatagarasu. I don't think there was a single card in my deck besides Gorse that would have got me there. So 2-1. Next round, I played against Blackwings. He started off going first. He went Whirlwind, Normal Summon Kalut, Search Gale, Search Blizzard, set 2 back row, pass. And I was like, fuck me. But I had Torrential. So I set Torrential. I passed the turn back. He goes Summon Gale. Activate Whirlwind. Activate Whirlwind. I chain Torrential. He goes Chain Starlight Road. And I'm like, double fuck me. But somehow I managed to come back. After 4 Whirlwind searches and a Resolve Starlight Road, Archlord Christia and Honest was enough to come back into that game. And I was able to take the whole match. Lightsworn versus Blackwings is a pretty good matchup for... Or not Lightsworn, sorry. I'm playing Fairies. Why am I talking about Lightsworn? This is the real Lightsworn deck. Let's be real. This is the real deck that is sworn to the light, if you think about it. But yeah, this deck beats the shit out of Blackwings. Game 2, or Game 3, or I don't fucking remember which game it was, but I had a Freed. He had a Light Mirror. I had a Freed, and I had 5 Fairies, and I banished one of them just to activate Freed, even though it would still be negated. And then I was able to summon a Christia, and he couldn't beat the Christia, even under Light Mirror. Just Christia alone was good enough. This card is insanely broken. Every game I summoned it, I won. So, started off 3-1. Things were looking really good. It was 6 rounds of Swiss. I got paired up against another Blackwing deck. As you can notice, this main deck Knock looking a little bit silly. We'll get into the deck choices after this. And this game was a lot tougher. I lost to some powerful sideboard cards. Game 3, he deck dev'd me for 5, which is insane. But I managed to come back into the game thanks to having 2 Bottomless Trap Hole. This card is so good against Blackwings. Pardon me. It allowed me to come back into the game after being deck dev'd for 5, which is crazy. I was able to clip his 2 monsters, top deck a clutch DD Warrior Lady that got me another 2 for 1, and then, we were able to, like, sort of stabilize, hang out in the game for a little bit longer, and then he top decked Dad with 3 Darks Engrave on the last possible turn when he had no other outs, and he just was able to beat me, so that's tough. The deck dev for 5 definitely did not help, but that card does do numbers on this deck. Unfortunately, it's one of my least favorite cards to face down. So thus far, the games we have lost have been to Light Mirror, Deck Dev, Skill Drain in the main, and Light Mirror, Skill Drain, Fossil Dyna. So those are games we've lost. We're 3-2, and I was like, you know, if I go 4-2 and my opponents that I lost to won out, then possibly I can make it into top 8 at 7th or 8th place. So I play against, in round 6, Chaos Control. It was a really cool deck. He was playing both Shining Angel and Mystic Tomato, as well as Thunder King Ryo and main deck Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer, and creature swaps. It was a pretty sweet deck. It felt really strong. Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer was really annoying. It made it so it was difficult for me to get Christia online, but I was able to outgrind him thanks to the power of Dimensional Alchemist. This card was absolutely insane for me the whole day. It's probably my favorite card in the deck, and I think I'm going to keep playing it in a lot of different decks moving forward just because of how strong it is. This card is probably going to be reflected on in Edison format as one of the strongest cards in the format. Once people start to develop the format more, this card can just slot into any deck that has powerful monsters that you want to reuse, like Dark Arms or Honest or Gores. There were multiple games where I used Gores like twice or 3 times even because I had Alchemist plus Call of the Haunted on the Gores, and it was just too much pressure for the opponent to really keep up with. Plus, if your opponent's ever forced to torrential this or mirror force this, you just get pluses. He crashes into Stratos for pluses. He crashes into Shura for pluses. That came up once. He crashes into a whole bunch of different cards. Obviously, 1800 is a pretty big stat line, and if you can defend him with Honest or some of the other trap cards, get multiple activations out of him, you just have a much more consistent hand because you get to see more cards than your opponent does. Basically, every activation of Dimensional Alchemist is almost like drawing a new card. It's the next best thing. Gosh, I'm so sorry, guys. The climate change has been messing with my inside, so I've been coughing a lot. But yeah, no, this is a super powerful card. And I ended the day 4-2. I did not make it into top 8. I was 12th place at the end of everything. So I was close. My opponents, they did pretty well. One of them made it into top 8, and one of them did not. He was the Hero Stone player did not make it into top 8, but the Blackwing player did. You can check out his deck profile. He was a very strong player. You can check out his deck profile, like I said, on Feel Good Gaming. I want to talk a little bit about the build and playing Fairies moving forward competitively because this is a strong deck. I think it is, without a doubt, in my mind, one of the top decks in the format. Archlord Christia is so insane. There are not many cards that can get you to come back against double Whirlwind Starlight Road, but Archlord Christia is that card. There are not many cards that can get you to come back against Norlaris, or get you to come back against Future Fusion like Christia can, or a card that can just play into back row so offensively like Christia. If it dies, it just comes back. It plays into Kalut, they're forced to waste their Kalut, you just draw the Christia, you play it again, you get another monster back. The card is just too powerful. It's just too busted, and you get to play the full 3 copies of it, so you're not nerfed by a ban list, and you're going to see it pretty consistently thanks to Dimensional Alchemist, as well as Raiko and Card Trooper plus Call of the Haunted, and the Legacy of Yadas to dig. So I think that this deck is going to be a strong contender in Edison format moving forward no matter what. I think this deck has good matchups against every deck, but I think this deck has a really difficult time dealing with the sideboard cards Light Imprisoning Mirror and Deck Devastation Virus. Those 2 cards cost me every single loss of the day, basically. They're just too good against this deck, and so I've been working on a sideboard plan, and I was testing it throughout the day, and it helped me win a couple games against Light Mirror and Deck Dev, which I was kind of sold on, but I think I might need to lean a little bit more into it. First things first, main deck Nobleman is dog shit. I don't know how Tommy Dang ever convinced me to play this card. I'm going to cut this card for sure moving forward. It was really bad. Main deck Soul Release was pretty good. I had a couple games where it just nuked a graveyard, ate a Plague and a Vayu, or I had a couple games where it controlled my grave for Christia, and I had a couple games, or actually just one game where I was able to banish cards in my graveyard to set up for my own return which was really, really nice. That actually was one of the strongest instances of me using Soul Release. Besides setting up for Christia, obviously. Yeah, where was I? Oh yeah, Knock for sure getting cut. And what I actually want to do is I want to main deck one of the compulsories. This was the best card in the entire tournament. I actually was going through my sideboard plans that I'd written out before the tournament, and I realized I was siding in compulsory in every single matchup. And I'm like, if I'm just siding it in every single matchup, why am I not just maining it? So I mained it at Nats because I predicted a little bit more Diva into Catastra at Nats than I did at this tournament. I know that the Maryland area has a lot of Blackwings, according to what I was told, and I was like, I don't know if I want to start the compulsory versus Blackwings, but then I noticed my sideboard plan involved siding in both the compulsories, but yeah, I'll definitely be siding or maining at least one compulsory evacuation device moving forward in this deck because it was just so powerful. It was definitely an MVP, definitely overperformed. But my sideboard plan basically was this. Versus Blackwings and Heroes, we were doing a pretty insane side in, side out situation. We were going for like a pretty transformative situation here, where we were taking out a full 9 to 10 to 11 cards, somewhere between 9 and 11 cards. Usually maybe even siding out like a Dialk sometimes, siding out, depending on the matchup, Soul Release. Like if it was Blackwings, we would side out Soul Release. So it just depends. But it would be these bottom cards that I've moved to the bottom here would get sided out. And then I have the side arranged here so I can show you the side in. I would side in double Breaker, double Compulsory. These were my best sideboard cards. Every game I drew Breaker, I won. I will be siding 3 of him moving forward. This card is fantastic, especially when paired with Compulsory Evacuation Device. Against Raikos, you can do stuff like, let's say your opponent starts T-set, right? You can go Summon Breaker, blow up the back row, set Compulsory, pass. If they flip Raiko, they target Breaker, you can bounce it with Compulsory and just get your guy back in your hands. Or you can, if they target Compulsory, you can either choose to bounce their Raiko or you can bounce your Breaker back, get another +1 out of it that way, and you can actually end up cards versus a turn 1 T-set with Raiko on the play, which very few other plays can end up +1 against those plays. Oftentimes, your opponent's going to be siding out Bottomless Trap Hole versus you because it doesn't hit a large majority of the monsters in your deck, and it only turns on your Alchemist when they do hit DD Warrior Lady with it. So it's pretty bad for your opponent to have Bottomless Trap Hole in their deck post-board. And when you bring in Breaker and your opponent doesn't have Bottomless Trap Holes, it's insane. When I was going up against Blackwings in round 3, my opponent started off with Greffer, Pitch Vayu, Send Sirocco, set 2 back row, pass. And then I summoned Breaker, and I was like, I know he doesn't have Bottomless Trap Hole in his deck. And because he didn't bring back the Armed Wing, I thought he was getting a little bit greedy, setting up a Deck Dev or an Icarus attack in order to chain to one of my back row. So I just attacked over his Greffer into 2 back row, and it just worked out. Main phase 2, I broke his back row. It was a Solemn. And then I set 3 cards, and his other back row was dead pretty much the rest of the game. So, yeah, it was really nice. It was really nice to have Breaker there in that instance. I mean, just knowing when to attack with it, knowing that you can attack with it in certain situations, knowing what you can do with this card is pretty important. So, yeah, Breaker, Compulsory is really good. I would side in the 2 Dust Tornadoes against Heroes and Blackwings because they do bring in Light Mirror, and they also do bring in Deck Dev, so you got to have the Dust Tornadoes. One thing that's good about Dust Tornado is being able to hit things in the end phase. Obviously, that's the nicest part about this card. It's the reason you're playing this and not something like, I don't know, Trap Stun or like 7 Tools is okay, but it costs life points, and your life points matter. I actually won a game this weekend at 200 life points, so yeah, your life points definitely do matter a lot, especially when you're like crashing a lot. So I think it's important. I think Dust Tornado is like just the best option. I was only siding 2 because I just didn't have space, and I couldn't side out more than 10 cards, and basically, or 11 cards in some instances. And these were the 10 cards I was bringing in by default. So moving forward, what I want to do differently is I actually want to cut the Thunder King, and I want to side a 3rd Breaker because I think this card is fucking insane. Like, it's literally the best card in this deck, like in the sideboard. It beats up on back row decks. It gets you free pluses. Your opponent's like really high on Deep Prison in this matchup. They're always going to have their Deep Prisons in. And so this guy just eats those for breakfast. He eats Dust Tornadoes for breakfast. He eats Light Mirrors. He hits Deck Devs. He doesn't get hit by Deck Dev, which is super important. He gets you pluses. Like if your opponent goes Deck Dev and they hit like 3 of your cards, Breaker can come down, get you a +1, and all of a sudden you're at parity. So like 3 for 3, like you can win through that pretty easily, especially because you have Christia, you have Freed in the post-board situations, and you just have ways to come back into the game. Like your engine is still online, whereas they've had to sacrifice a normal summon and a high value monster in order to even proc the deck dev, which usually puts them in an awkward position to begin with. So I think triple breaker is going to be correct moving forward. Double compulsory, like I said, is great with breaker. A Cyber Dragon is just a beat stick that can come in versus Black Wings. They deck dev you, and then maybe Cyber Dragon can beat up on them. Maybe they're down 2 cards and they don't have the answer to Cyber Dragon. Same thing with Freed. He's really good after you get deck dev'd. I am considering maining one because he was so fantastic, but I just don't know where I would find it. Some of the other cards that I thought were really fantastic were the main deck Legacy of Yatagarasu. I really like this card. I think Pro Storm really snapped when he decided to tech this in this deck. It's one of the best cards in this deck. I want to open it almost every single game. I don't want to play 3 because I don't have enough space for it, but I do think having the 2 in here is really, really good. And I was really happy, like I said, with Dimensional Alchemist and Christia. Every game I drew Christia, I won, and every game I drew Breaker, I won. So the deck is still really, really strong. A little bit more about the event. The top 8 was super sick. I'm not going to say too much about it. You can check out Feel Good Gaming. They had, I think, Vayu Turbo, Blackwing, Flamvelcat top 8'd, Diva Hero Beat. There was another fairy deck that top 8'd, and this guy had some crazy tech. He had some crazy tech. So if Fairies is your jam, definitely go check out that video. And Trainaldo from the recent 8-man videos, he made top 8 with Glads, and his Glad list was fire. And then Diva Hero Beat, and there was one other deck that made top 8s. I'm forgetting what it was. Oh, it was Christia Sworn. I don't think it's uploaded yet. I haven't refreshed the page or whatever. But basically, yeah, there was a Christia Sworn deck that made top 8, which was super sick. Actually, the entire top 8 was a blast to watch. Flamvelcat is such a cool deck to see have success. He actually made it all the way to top 4. So he got a pretty good prize for it, I believe. And then I just want to say a little bit about Feel Good Gaming, because like what they're doing out in the East Coast for Edison is really sick. They want to start throwing, like, I believe, a monthly 1K, which is super cool at Xanadu. So if you're in that area, if you feel like making the drive to it, it's not that bad of a drive from like New Jersey, Pittsburgh, a lot of places in the East Coast. And like just having that consistent competitive Edison environment is so fire. Like I would kill for something like that in my city. So if you have access to that, I would say definitely take advantage of that. The guys who are running it, they care about the community. Evan, Chuck, Brian, all the guys who were involved, Nick Makes Plays, the guy who was judging, pretty much everyone who was there was like, you could tell that they were like very passionate about Edison format and very passionate about putting on for the community, and everything else was secondary. Like profit was secondary, like just making sure that there was a tournament happening for the people who were playing this format was like their primary focus, and that to me was just so sick. It was like honestly one of the nicest events I've ever been to outside of like my own, which is really, really cool. And I'd say it was like tied with my own. You know what I mean? Like the vibes were immaculate. For me, going to a tournament, it's super important if the vibe is right. Like I think it's tough because like sometimes you go to a tournament and like you try your hardest and you lose. And that just happens. Like kind of what happened with me. Like I got 12th. It's not what I wanted to place. I definitely wanted the top with Fairies. I bubbled. It happens. I should have won more if I wanted the top more. You get the vibes. I should have sided better. I shouldn't have main deck Nobleman if I knew I was going to play against 5 decks that Nobleman didn't do anything against. You know what I mean? Like, but at the same time, like, you know, if you lose a tournament and the tournament felt like a chore, it makes you never want to play the game again. But if you lose at a tournament and the tournament feels like a party and everyone there's like having a good time, and I was like playing friendlies with people and I was like watching matches, and there were just so many cool people. Like I would shout them all out, but it would be literally every person who was there. Like the vibes were tight. Everyone was like cracking jokes, watching matches. Like even like the judge calls were like super lighthearted. Like nobody was getting pissed off or anything. It felt like a party first and then like a tournament second. And that was a really cool thing to experience from the player side of things. Normally I'm like at the RBET stuff or like at other Edison events. Like even at Nats, I felt like I was kind of like working, quote unquote. But at this, I felt like I was 100% there as a player, and the vibe was so sick. It was just like super, super fun. And that's largely in part to do with what the guys at Feel Good Gaming are doing to like make sure the space is cool. But also it's in part to do with you guys, like the people who watch these videos, the people who go to these tournaments, the people who play this format. You guys are really cool. I don't give you guys enough credit. You guys are fucking awesome. You're one of the coolest communities in gaming that I've ever seen. Like, I would pick hanging out with Edison players over a lot of different communities in gaming just because of like the vibes that you guys give off. It's just like, we're just here to have a good time and hang out and like, you know, maybe crack a couple beers, win some, lose some, whatever, you know, like it's not that big of a deal. And if you win, like it's PogChamp and everyone like is like about each other. I don't know. It's just the vibes of this community are really, really fire, and I'm super, super grateful. Like this whole weekend left me feeling really grateful. This tournament recap is it's it's a little bit more chill than I thought it was gonna be. I thought I was gonna get all like get all technical and shit, talk about sideboarding and stuff, but like honestly, like how many of you guys like are here to listen to me talk about how I'm not gonna sideboard knock anymore? Like fucking 3 of you guys are here to see. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna side 3 breakers moving forward. You got the info you're looking for. You know what I mean? Like this deck is fire. I'm probably still gonna play it moving forward. I still think it's one of the top 3 decks in the format, in my opinion. I think the top 3 decks in the format are Dragons, Blackwings, and Fairies. I think everything else is below those decks. I think like they still like this has been my tier list opinion since like day one. But I think that like those are the 3 decks that like really feel like no matter what you're always in the game. Whereas like there are a lot of other decks where it feels like you can be shut out of the games. Yeah, to be fair, Consecrated Light against Blackwings can sometimes shut them out, and like Deck Dev versus Fairies can sometimes shut them out, and then there's a couple cards versus Dragons, like sometimes Royal Oppression versus Dragons can just be lights out. But for the most part, those decks, like it feels like you're always in the game, and it feels like you have enough like resources to play long games, or you could play short games and like win. Like I had games where I won on turn 30, and I had games where I won on turn 2. And that shit is crazy. Like having a deck that has the capability of doing that is super nice. I think that that's like kind of the power of Fairies. People definitely underestimate its aggressive potential with regards to stuff like Return, Call of the Haunted, that sort of thing. So yeah, deck's super good. I'm probably still gonna play it moving forward. Right now, what I want to dedicate my time and my energy to though, because I feel like I've made a lot of headway with this deck. Let me go ahead and resort it for y'all. I do want to be main decking that compulsory from now on. So this is probably what my list is going to look like moving forward. I didn't play against any frogs. There was hardly any frogs there, so Needle Sealing, Pulling the Rug didn't come in. But if I predict more frogs, I'll probably side like maybe 1 more card for frogs and 1 less breaker. But that's really it, What was I talking about? I was talking about something. I lost my fucking train of thought. Oh, yeah. I've made a lot of headway with this deck. I think the last like really big innovation was including Mind Control and Cyber Valley. These cards are really good game 1. Like they really help clear up a lot of situations game 1. And it's just a great way to grab card advantage and card draw in a deck that actually desperately needs that card advantage and that card draw. Mind Control with Cyber Valley, not only does it set up for your Return and your Alchemist perfectly, but it gets you a +1 and it removes threats. And it can remove face down threats or defense position threats, which this deck struggles with. So, like, yeah, I think that's the last innovation I made with this deck. The Legacies are a cool innovation from Pro Storm, and I think Soul Release is a really cool innovation from Tommy Dang. I'm not sure what the next innovation is going to be just yet for this deck, but I think, like, with regards to, like, innovating deck lists and spending, like, shitloads of time testing them, I want to direct my attention to X-Sabers. Because I just love losing to Deck Devastation Virus, apparently. I fucking really want to lose to Deck Dev in multiple lists, not just Fairies, but also in X-Sabers. I think that X-Sabers is one of those decks that has untapped potential, and I think that it suffers in some areas. Obviously Deck Dev, obviously Royal Oppression, obviously Icarus Attack, obviously Glads is an unwinnable matchup. But I think it's not as optimized as it could be. I think Totagon did a great job getting it pretty fucking close. I'm going to start with his list and just see if I can take it any further and come up with anything that's like kind of cool with that deck. The next tournament I enter, I'm probably going to enter it with either X-Sabers or I'm going to enter it with a deck that has Dark Simorgh in it because I've been wanting to play this card forever. I think this card is super fun to play with. It's just like a big dumb Chaos Sorcerer that doesn't banish. It's just a huge attack stat monster. That has a weird floodgate effect that can come up, but usually doesn't. Yeah. So I'm either going to enter the next tournament with like Full Helm Knight, X-Sabers, that stuff, or I'm going to enter with Dark Simorgh because I've been entering a lot of tournaments. Not really, but I've entered now 2 big tournaments with Fairies, and I'm pretty happy with the deck. I'm pretty happy with my performance of the last 2 events. Even though it's not like topping, I still think I did pretty well, and I think I played better at this event than I did at Nats, which made me really happy. My only real losses were to like Floodgate cards. So I know I have what it takes in me to like top with this deck. And so I feel like I don't really have much left to prove with this deck, especially because if you look at the top 8, it's like it is topping. Like it got top 8. And then on top of that, like you know, Tommy won the PS5 tournament last weekend at fucking Card Addiction or whatever it was. But yeah, so you know, like the deck is putting up results, and I feel like I've pushed it pretty far, and I think I want to try and work on something else for a bit now. So I'm gonna be looking into Dark some more. I'm gonna be looking into X Sabers, and I'm gonna be looking into maybe a secret third deck, which I'm not really ready yet to reveal to the public. But those are gonna be the 3 decks I'm looking to not only play more of, but build in paper. So yeah, let me know in the comments if you think there's if you think you know what the secret third deck is. Let me know in the comments if these types of videos are your cup of tea, if you like hearing about the tournaments that I enter, or you know, just say hi in the comments below and I'll say hi back. Definitely don't forget to check out Feel Good Gaming, subscribe to their YouTube, follow them on their socials. I'll leave a link tree in the either the description or the comments below. And of course, join their Discord because they are running, I believe they're running tournaments there with prizes. They're running kind of like the 8-mans that are in my Discord, but they're having prizes on them too. So check them out. I think they're doing some really cool stuff for the scene on the East Coast, which is fucking awesome. So shout out to those guys. I'll see you guys in the next vid. Peace.